Good evening. I'm Chuck Harris. Welcome to this evening's edition of Say Brother Times 2. Tonight's stories both deal with our future as a strong, viable community. First, producer Barbara Barrow Murray follows up on a 1981 summer issue of Black Enterprise entitled War on Black Children. She further examines how single parenting, financial assistance, and social pressures impact on this country's black child. Next, Say Brother reporter Lavelle Diet investigates on the state of Massachusetts black neighborhoods not getting their fair share in the voter registration process for the past primary election. Now, let us attempt to address the question, is there a war?
Black children. The May 1981 issue of Black Enterprise asked this very valid question of parents and educators. Professor William Julia states, nearly 78% of all poor black children under 18 live in homes headed by women. The problem is not so much the absence of the father as it is their poverty.
They don't get the kind of help that they need. They don't get the same kind of release from their duties that middle-class parents do. And more often than not, single parents find themselves much poorer than they were when they were in an intact home, if they had an intact home and if they were married. And the ones who never married also are quite poor. And that's just a fact. It's very hard for them to make it into mainstream of the economic system. So the poverty alone produces hardships in terms of daily living and caring for the child, from clothes to feeding to recreation. Can produce enormous strains.
Roxbury YWCA Director Helen Cheeks explains this war, expressing some of the strain put on black parents and children.
The amount of monies that they're given, again, are never enough. Cost of living is going up. One has to live on the same dollars, meet your child's nutritional needs, clothing needs, within the same limitations. I do agree that there is a war on black children. That war primarily from a socioeconomic point of view, in that at this time, women are being asked to return either to the job market or to participate in training. Specifically, these are women who are receiving welfare assistance. Hence the need for special daycare services or aftercare services as that need might arise. But oftentimes that supportive services which are being offered are not adequate enough to cover the need. In that if you're participating in training, for example, that goes beyond 5 or 6 o'clock and the daycare services close at 4 to 4:30, you have to get additional services which are oftentimes not budgeted for.
Now, is this a war that is peculiar just to black children, or is it any child living in a single-parent household?
It's not peculiar to black children, but it especially affects black children because what is perhaps most important in one family incomes is the level of income, is a poverty level or a non-poverty level, whether or not if people have an adequate income in terms of being able to purchase supports and be able to have a housekeeper in the house, that's one thing. But if you have one income and you're marginal in being able to support yourself, or you end up being on welfare and not able to support yourself other than that, then that makes a major difference.
When I worked on my master's at Boston University 10 years ago, I had to get on welfare to help support myself and my son and pay the rent and so forth. It was hard. It was a struggle. But I feel that, you know, education is your incentive for the economic independence that I knew that I would need to raise the child. Alone, I had to be educated.
According to the Children's Defense Fund's publication, Portrait of Inequality, in 1977, the poverty level income for a family of 4 was $6,157. Here is the percentage of children living in families with incomes below the poverty level by age and race. Under 3 years of age, 33.8% more blacks. 3 to 5, 31.6% more blacks. 6 to 13, 28.7% more blacks. 14 to 15, 30.4% more blacks, and 16 to 17, 29% more blacks.
But part of the reason that we're in poverty is in part due to all of the legacies of discrimination in the society. So yeah, they have, there's still among children, white children and black children, there's inequality, and a lot of it traceable to racial issues.
In terms of equality education, black children are at a disadvantage from the beginning, as so with desegregation and such programs as Head Start, and the quality of schools in general in the black areas of this country. It is assumed that black children are lower in terms of achievement. Most teachers have a negative perception of black children. I'm speaking as an educator.
I guess if we look back at the 60s and the literature that one had to review and respond to in college, that literature, primarily put out at that time by white middle-class social scientists, focused on, quote-unquote, the black matriarch, in that there were certain negative behavioral expectations if a child came from a single-parent home compared to the child who came from dual parentage. That, although it has changed, still has a great way to go, because there are still many who still expect that kind of behavior, and oftentimes the behavior that one is seeing has no correlation with the environment that a child is coming from.
I think it's wrong to assume negative things about a child because they're in a single-parent home, or to have stereotypes about the child. I think that's a problem in itself, and that goes on. It used to go on in particular, and even school teachers would think of a child as being illegitimate, and therefore he was destined, or she was destined to have all kinds of problems, that they were destined to become delinquents. That kind of attitude will itself need to neglect and can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they, in reality, may end up rejecting those children, or seeing them in such a negative light that they really don't give them a chance and an opportunity.
Give me your opinion on the judicial system's perspective and attitudes on children who come from single-parent households.
If the judicial system as it exists uses the literature, if those people participating in the system have gone through the educational process using that literature, which has been so structured by those social scientists at that time, and have not sought to undo that kind of process, justice will never be done.
Many children in today's society are living in a single-parent household. Tell me if you think there are any negative repercussions to living in a household with one parent.
Well, speaking as a single parent, of course, I am subjective, and I do believe that it is not a disadvantage to be a single parent. But the stereotype is that children from single-parent families do start with a disadvantage because they don't have two parents.
Alexa's 13-year-old son, Jamal, speaks for himself as someone who has been raised primarily by one parent for 10 years.
It's really not that bad, you know, once you get a hold of it. And you get used to what you gotta do and how you're gonna grow up, you know, listening to them, taking more responsibilities and stuff like that. It's kind of fun. I like it better living with my mother than with my mother and father.
Oh, really? Why do you say that?
Because, I don't know, I just used to living with my mother, you know. Well, sometimes I go visit my father over the summer, or, you know, go on vacation, visit my brothers and sisters.
So you have actually two homes?
Yeah.
Two homes. Support from the other parent, the extended family, and friends are all very important.
Some parents, single parents, do incredibly excellent jobs, without any question. They do unbelievable jobs. I mean, how they do so much, it's hard to know. On the other hand, the reality is that it's a very difficult thing to do. It's difficult even with a nuclear family. It does immeasurable damage when anyone doesn't have support. I'm a psychologist, and I think a large part of what I do has to do with providing support that society doesn't provide. Primarily one of the major functions that mental health people provide at this point in time is support. It's the kind of support in ways that it's a professional friend. I think that we will need people like myself in this role as long as the society doesn't provide it.
I think that parents should keep themselves very positive and upward, forward, spiritually uplifted, because they have to give that incentive to their children, to always let their children know that they love them, always encourage their children, and to take the time. The time factor is very important, because when you're a single parent, everything falls on you. You must do everything, pay the rent, get the groceries, everything falls on you. I also recommend that single parents form a supportive network, whether it be close friends or family, to assist with the child rearing.
As Well as House is in the process of developing a single parent supportive group. In that, the program will focus on the needs as those needs arise and as articulated by those participants in the program. Our intention is not to turn anyone away, to develop a sliding fee scale so that those who come in, we will attempt as best we can to meet their needs.
So I think
Not only have we found that there is a war on black children in this country, but there is something you can do about it. Your support is the key to ending this war. Lend it in whatever form you can to your neighbor, friend, fellow worker, or family member. The problems encountered by blacks registering to vote here in Massachusetts drew much public attention when a year ago a number of community organizations sued the Boston Election Commission in the state's Superior Court. On September 9th of this year, there was another demonstration at Boston City Hall charging that the Election Commission hampered voter registration efforts in the black communities prior to this fall's primary election. Say Brother reporter Lavelle Diet investigated these charges.
This land is ruled by a democracy that's supposed to include you and me. It provides a way to get your problem solved, but first you got to get involved. I want to talk to you about politics and what it means to me and you, so we can realize that to better our lives there's a simple thing each one of us can do. Let's vote, let's vote, let's vote, let's vote. You say it doesn't help, that's a bunch of jive.
People came here to vote. The machines are closed. If something happens and it's 5 minutes you wait, or 10, 15 minutes, but here it is close to 10 o'clock, 2 hours after the polls have opened, and people have not had an opportunity to vote. You can't get a satisfactory answer. There's only one answer that makes sense, and that is that I can go in and vote.
Keep our people ignorant about the power that's in our hands. The man makes politics very confusing and hard to understand, so
failures weren't as widespread as indicated. We had 24 major machine failures throughout the course of the day of 1,000 machines set up. Our problems were more related to the election officers who were unable or incapable of servicing the election machines and opening them up and getting them ready for election day.
Let your voices be heard. If leaders won't do right by us, then we're supposed to make a fuss.
We always get the City Hall shuffle every time we go down to see the mayor. We have to come in masses of groups of people to argue our point, but we're going to continue to fight.
See, politics is the science of who gets what, when, why, and how. If you really want your voice to be heard, go register right now.
The responsibility and the authority for the supervision of elections, the certification of eligible voters, and the registration of new voters rests with the Boston Election Commission right here at Boston City Hall. Recently, the Election Commission has been accused of incompetence, inefficiency, and some say even playing politics with voter registration. The Commission has been embroiled in a dispute with the minority community for several months over voter registration sites. The campaign for district representation took the city of Boston to court, alleging that the city's disapproval of 54 voter registration petitions in 1981 was a violation of state law. The law states that voter registration can be conducted by citizens at any principal place of activity.
We went to court and presented a complaint, And the judge agreed with us and issued a temporary injunction and required that in the few remaining days of voter registration in October of 1981, that certain places be allowed to have voter registration occur, despite the fact that the city prior to that had said no, that it wasn't a principal place of activity, that it wasn't safe, or whatever other alleged reason they gave.
Here is the heart of the dispute, Roxbury's Dudley MBTA station. It is estimated that more than 14,000 persons pass through here each day. The MBTA saw neither difficulty nor danger if voter registration were conducted here. So a coalition of citizens believe that a 10-day registration campaign could yield almost 5,000 new voters at Dudley.
In 1980, I had personally observed voter registration going on at Dudley Station, a place they claim to be unsafe.
Let's look at the safety factor, which seems to be the major bone of contention. If there is some security support provided, why not register voters? Thousands of people pass through turnstiles every day. Why not register voters at MBTA stations, or at least in some very close proximity?
We are in close proximity to Dudley Street Station, for example, and would be willing to do it in a storefront close to Dudley Street Station, including the courthouse or the police station across the street. Given the rapidity of turnover in an MBTA station with people getting on and off the buses, we think would be very confusing, and we're not particularly happy with any guarantees we have received regarding safety. And lastly, Lavelle, we have given the petitioners literally every petition they've requested except those two, and we think there are sufficient alternatives, including street fairs and special registration drives like the one conducted recently in the black community, that they are accessible to the minority community and the white community and any other resident of the city of Boston. We don't feel that we've disenfranchised anyone.
Now, if you can't register people at Dudley Station, which they say isn't safe, then what good is there to have a police station there and the Roxbury Courthouse and MBTA police officers? If students and children and older men and women can go through there every day.
School committee member Jean McGuire has seen many new voters registered at Dudley in the past. She thinks the present disapproval of Dudley may be politically motivated.
To come and vote. We have people who are trained and have done it before who could be deputized. People who are concerned citizens, people who are intelligent, people who are effective with other people. They're denied the right to do voter registration for a lot of different reasons that the Election Commission says are legitimate, but we feel are not legitimate. We feel that they're deliberately, for some reason, frustrating the effort to register large numbers of people to vote.
But Mrs. McGuire, the legal position of the city of Boston is that Dudley Station is not a principal place of activity. It's a place through which people pass, not a place to which people come.
Well, I have to laugh at that because I go through there every day, and anybody who goes through there knows that's a place of major activity. Ask any young person, ask any person waiting for a bus. When I campaigned, that was one of the major places I campaigned. Everybody in Roxbury goes to Eggleston and Dudley Station.
Well, you just stated their position. You said you go through there every day, and they say that's not a principal place of activity.
I suppose you could say that about the Stop and Shop. You go through there to buy your food and you go home. The only place that you stay is where you live. Any other place, you either go into work and you're inside the building and come out unless you work outside, or like on a truck or in the street, or you're in transit. The issue is that you can't stop people in transit. Have you ever waited for an MBTA bus at Dudley Station? To Kane Square or to Blue Hill Avenue? You wait a long time sometimes for buses. Well, you can get people there to stop when they're going in there to wait for their bus or get their train and get them to register to vote.
Stop and Shop here on Columbia Road in Roxbury, where thousands shop each day, was also a disapproved site. The controversy raging over Stop and Shop and Dudley seemed to cover up some underlying political suspicions. Russell Williams, convener of a national project to register new minority voters in Boston called Operation Big Vote, says his campaign has encountered major difficulties with the Boston Election Commission.
I think the record shows a lack of commitment.
Why?
I don't know. I would you, by registering 10 to 15,000 black people, are going to change the politics of the city. The voting strongholds in the city right now are South Boston, West Roxbury, Neponset. And you are saying that the black community and the Hispanic community are going to become stronger forces in city politics. That's threatening to a lot of people.
The Reverend Bruce Wall, coordinator of Yes We Can, has conducted many voter registration drives in the black community. What is his assessment of the Boston Election Commission?
I would say that there needs to be a tremendous amount of improvement. I've been trying to work with the various commissioners to try to sensitize them to the needs of the black community, to going out into the black community, and trying to assist some of us who have a track record in registering our folk. A fair grade, not a passing grade, but a fair grade.
We would like community input. We seek petitions from the community, and we seek alternative registration sites. We have the manpower to staff these sites. We don't have the furniture, nor do we have a pulse on what's going on in the neighborhoods that we can determine these sites. Consequently, we solicit these petitions.
Is voter registration a problem for you because of a serious cutback in your staffing and budget recently?
No, it is not. Voter registration has been and remains a priority in this department, and at no point have we ever refused a registration site this year, given the severe budget cutbacks all city departments have faced because of lack of funding. We've done every petition we've received.
The Boston Election Commission estimates that in the predominantly black community, only half of the people who are eligible to vote are registered. Now, that fact alone would call for massive voter registration on the part of the Boston Election Commission and, of course, cooperation between citizen groups who want to register more voters and the Boston Election Commission. Well, despite court suits and disagreements and disputes, it seems that now maybe those problems are all being worked out. But that's only the first step. The next step, of course, is voting, the right to vote. And in the last primary election, well, there were some problems.
It's terrible. And everyone is going away angry. Everybody.
They knew very well, the authorities knew very well, that this was the day to vote. No? And this is what they have done.
And it is the same story over and over again. It is as if they do not want people here in this district to vote.
Anger and frustration prevailed the day of the primary. Voting machines did not work. Registered voters were not on the voting list. Polls did not open on time. Polling monitors were untrained, and there were no telephones at polling places. There has been organized community protest. The Roxbury-Mattapan Fair Share has threatened legislation to ensure orderly elections. And the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Michael Connolly, he wants to take the Boston Election Commission to court.
And I really believe that absent a court order, and that is the court order to get them to put their house in order for November 2nd. But beyond that, if they don't, we want to be able to have the force of the courts behind us so that we can correct the situation for one time. We can correct it on that particular day, and if they fail to correct it, then we'll be able to take more stringent measures. And when I say more stringent measures, I speak to a receivership, which even I do not want to see in this case.
And the Boston City Council has gotten into the act. They've held hearings on the last primary election.
The church that I served, 12th Baptist Church in Roxbury, was barraged with phone calls from angry and frustrated, duly registered voters who complained that their names had been dropped from the voting list, or that they had tried to vote on their way to work, but the polls were not open. Some polls in the black community did not open until 10:30 a.m.
There is no question that there have been thousands of voters in the city of Boston who lost their right to vote on Tuesday, September 14th.
One defeated candidate for state representative endorsed by the Black Political Task Force, Edwina Clordy, agrees with Secretary Connolly. She lost her race in the 12th Suffolk Representative District to James J. Craven, Jr. She has claimed that mistakes and irregularities on primary day may have cost her the election, which she lost after an official recount by only 72 votes. She has sued the city of Boston. She has asked Suffolk Superior Court Justice Paul Garrity to call a new election. What about the future? Are you ready for November?
The board met Thursday following the election and determined to make a significant change in the procedures we had used. We plan on spending additional funds to eliminate and to minimize our problems. We plan to do the following. First of all, starting at 6:30 in the morning, we will call all our election officers, the wardens, clerks, and inspectors to be sure they're going to be at the polls. Secondly, we're going to put an additional 25 telephones in here for a total of 35, and an additional 252 phones out in the precincts, so there is one in every voting precinct in the city. Further, we plan to bring in all our wardens and clerks and retrain them so that they understand who should be allowed to vote, who should not be permitted to vote, and the other responsibilities thrust upon them for Election Day.
The NAACP Operation Big Vote, Yes We Can, and Fair Share are promising vigorous voter registration efforts until the more than 42,000 unregistered persons living in the predominantly minority precincts are on the voting rolls. Say Brother will be watching the election closely to make sure those who are supposed to vote do just that. Thanks for watching this edition of Say Brother Times 2. For the Say Brother staff, I'm Chuck Harris. Good night.
Democracy that's supposed to include you and me. It provides a way to get your problem solved, but first you got to get involved. I want to talk to you about politics and what it means to me and you, so we can realize that to better our lives there's a simple thing each one of us can do. Let's vote, let's vote, let's vote, let's vote. You say it doesn't help, that's a bunch of jive, cause politics